What's up everyone, it's Josh here, and today I'm going to be showing you my first mock back building since approximately 2017, 2018-ish. I'm really excited to get back into building. Back in October, a couple of my friends and I went to Brick Fair in Oaks, PA, and that re-sparked my desire to build. My parts collection was a mess, and it took me probably 3 months to sort everything, and after sorting, I started messing around with the build that was way too big and too ambitious to start with. So I scrapped that, it was a Clone Wars project, and moved on to the Butcher of Blaviken scene from The Witcher Season 1, Episode 1. It took me a couple months after October to sort through my collection, and by the new year I was ready to start building. I first started trying to build on 2 gray base plates. I wanted to build a massive Star Wars battle. I ran out of pieces very quickly. I was through all my filler brick and half of my rock work bricks in about an eighth of the build, not even. Even with 2 visits to the LEGO store and 3 online pick-a-brick orders, I still was lacking in parts. In one of his mock building series videos, Coconut Brick Studios was discussing how you need to start small. And even though I was a mocker back in the day, I realized that I had to start small again before I was able to tackle any more ambitious projects. So I decided to go to a 32 by 32 build. Despite the show's flaws, the Butcher of Blaviken scene was one of the best choreographed fight scenes that I've watched in a long time. So let's jump into the build. So this mock, I was really trying to capture the close combat feel of the battle between Geralt and Renfri's men. I think that I did a good job of conveying that cramped type of feel, and even though the building placement isn't perfect and the scale of the buildings isn't perfect, I think it really gets the message across and conveys the image I was going off of in my head and all the pictures that I was looking at of the Butcher of Blaviken scene. This building technically should have been diagonal to the other 2 buildings, I believe, but I was not trying to build at a different angle. This is my first mock back, and I wanted to focus on some different techniques first, some easier techniques than building diagonally, as LEGO is just so much easier to build square shapes with. This greebling was my first attempt at greebling a building, and I think it turned out okay. I'm not thrilled with how it looks, but it's a learning experience. I think that the crammed feeling though is really conveyed well. Just looking at this alleyway shot and looking at the shot from Geralt's perspective, you see that it's just like a lot of guys in one small area, and yeah, I think that really shows up well and is accurate to the show. Now, I also didn't really do too well with building interiors. You know, this was meant to convey the scene of the Butcher of Blaviken, not necessarily the interior. I added this scribe's desk just for the heck of it. I pulled this scribe piece off of the Harry Potter set, the rumor requirement, and I built this little custom desk. Now I'm also terrible at building roofs and interiors, both of them. But I thought this roof turned out okay. I used these little angle pieces, I don't know what they're called, these bendy pieces, I call them, and was able to get this nice angle for the roof using the 3x4 CMF base plates. I think they look really great as roof pieces, like shingles, and if you stack them on top of each other, you get a nice layered look. And that's what I was going for. I've tried this once before and I liked it, so I wanted to do it on a bigger scale. And I think it turned out pretty good. This illegal building technique too. Now on this roof, I tried a different technique that I learned in the Viking village using the 2x2 inverted slopes, which you'll see in a second when I flip over the roof here. There's the shingle work, the detail work. Again, trying to kind of use some of the LEGO sets that I've recently built as inspiration, the rumor requirement and the Viking village. Probably could have been better. Again, this is first mock back, so it was just a learning experience. And I really don't build roofs that often. I usually use the 2x2 slope or the 2x4 slopes to build my roofs instead of doing anything more custom. So it was really fun to try and use new techniques, which is the whole point of my mocking, getting back into it. This is supposed to be like a carpenter shop. You got like little wood beams in there, some shelves, and I probably could have thrown minifigs in, but I ended up not. And there you see the inverted slopes that I used to get the angle. They rest right on the wall here, and they meet together an illegal building technique again. But yeah, I thought it turned out decent, not great, but only up from here, right? Now here's the mock with no figs. I think the road looks really good actually. It's probably my favorite part. It's not too much one color, studs, smooth, broken up, pretty good. My figs was what I probably spent the most time on, because minifigs tell the story. Geralt didn't have armor on in this scene, so I just went with a standard Jedi robe and I think a claymore sword from Brickforge or Brick Arms, I forget which one. And yeah, like I said, I probably spent 25, 30 minutes, 40 minutes just digging through my minifig box, trying to pick out the right figures, the right bodies, the right weapons, and try and capture the exact, or as exact as you can get with minifig, poses and people that were in this scene. And I think I did a decent job for what I had to work with. And I mean, you don't have a ton of it's hard to get leather armor in Lego, because it's either printed, and I didn't have any leather armor printed pieces, or you have to do the breastplates, and they look way more bulky than the armor that the Renfri's men were wearing. So you kind of had to just go with what you had. And I think that I really like my torso selections and my face selections and hair pieces. Like for instance, this guy, he's the guy that gets his stabbed through the face with the sword. He has a real high and tight haircut, and Lego doesn't make anything really like that, so that's probably the best hair piece I could have used there. The crossbowman was actually really fun because I got the Room of Requirement set for Christmas, and I knew immediately that I could use that hair piece and that face to build the crossbowman, and I think he probably turned out the best out of all the figs. And then we even got to use the old throwback samurai armor, because I thought that it kind of looked like the shoulder pads of the armor that the axeman was wearing in that scene. So all in all, I was pretty satisfied with how the figures turned out and what I was able to do with the limited resources that I had, without buying any new figs. So yeah, this turned out really good, and I was proud of that. Now this barrel technique here, I found it on YouTube. I was just watching some castle mocks. I'll try and find the link, but not my own. This wagon I did build on my own, and you probably can tell. I never really delved into these types of scenes. Sorry, not scenes, but these types of builds before, and I was satisfied-ish with how the wagon turned out. It definitely could have been better, but not bad for my first attempt. My goal for posting my builds is to become a better builder. With that in mind, at the end of each video, I'm going to reflect on the things I did well and then the things that I need to improve upon, or the things I learned. I think my number one success from this build was just completing it. Once you complete your first build back, it just reminds you of the joy that you had for building in the first place and why you used to love it. Finishing this build just reminded me of all the time I spent building back in the day, and I'm super excited to keep mocking in the future. The second thing that I was really proud of in this build was how I really did manage to capture the close quarter feel of the fight. I think that it was very narrow because it was on a 32 by 32 plate, but the scene was very narrow. The fight scene, Geralt doesn't have much room to maneuver, and I think that was really portrayed well in this build. The things I can improve upon: number one, I think that I really need to work on not rushing the build. Sometimes I know completing it was my success, but sometimes I get a little too antsy to complete things, and then I'll rush through it when it gets boring or when it gets repetitive. I like doing some of the fun details like minifig placement, but when it comes to doing the nitty-gritty piece after piece, sometimes that can get pretty boring. When it gets boring, it's easy to rush. So my first reminder to myself is don't rush. My second tip is don't compare yourself to other builders. While building this, I was watching a lot of other YouTubers, and it's just easy to get discouraged by the amount of pieces they have and the size of the builds that they're doing. I feel like I'm lacking in comparison to them, but I have to remember that I have to do the best that I can with what I have. The third thing I learned, and probably the most important from this build, is don't just greeble to greeble. And what I mean by that is don't just throw haphazard greebling on the walls or on the other parts of the build just for the heck of it. This was the first time that I've really greebled anything and using the greeble as wall detail, and at first I was just haphazardly throwing rebuilding pieces on without thinking about what purpose or what function they were serving. And it turned out really bad. I had to destroy the first house and rebuild it completely because I wasn't happy with how it looked. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you're up to date when I drop new videos. You can find me at my social links below. Thanks for watching, everyone. God bless.